Hey, so you probably clicked on this video because you haven't heard of or want to know more about the 7 deadly sins. Well, I'm going to tell you about all 7. Starting with pride. Pride isn't a sin normally. In fact, it's good to have some pride. But excessive pride is the sin. For example, you can be proud about getting a good grade on a test, but having too much pride in that good grade can be a sin. This is partly because it can make you think you're the best, even if you're not. So you put others down and elevate yourself above them, which can also cause you to think you're like God and above His statutes. And to top it off, pride was the original sin committed by Satan himself when he said he was like God. So to sum it up, pride is all about me, myself, and I. But now we can move on to greed. Greed is wanting to keep and gain more and more of something while not being willing to give any bit of it up, no matter what. For example, a greedy man is walking down the street and a homeless man asks him for any spare change, and despite having plenty of cash, refuses to give any money. That being said, money isn't the only thing you can be greedy with either. You can be greedy with practically anything. I must also add, there is a difference between being smart with something and being greedy with it. We'll use cash as an example again, as it's the item greed is mostly applied to. You can save back money for something, but you know when to spend it and if you can. So you may not always be able to give, but you do if you can or need something. You can save and manage it appropriately. But greed refuses to spend money. He only saves it and tries to gain more and more. So now that you see what greed is, we can move to lust. Lust is wanting someone in an inappropriately romantic way. For example, a man is walking down the street when he sees a pretty woman. He obviously would like to date her, but also to do inappropriate things. That's lust, and both men and women alike can be affected by it, just like every other sin. So we should all act and dress appropriately to avoid causing lust and falling victim to it. Now we can talk about envy. Envy is the desire to have a possession or quality someone else has. As an example, let's say an envious person sees a rich man and he wants that guy's money and life, causing him to gain resentment and a feeling that it's unfair. And to further explain, let's say someone gets a good paying job and you wish you had a good paying job. That's not envy. But if you wish you had their good paying job, then that's envy. And envy can also lead to other dangerous actions and sins, all because of that resentment and unfair feeling it causes. Anyways, now that I explained envy, we can move to gluttony. Gluttony is the lack of self-control regarding and overindulgence in food and drink. However, it's a bit more complicated than that, because gluttony is not occasionally overeating like at a buffet or Thanksgiving dinner. So no worries, my buffet lovers, although you should still try and stop eating once you're full or it could turn into gluttony. Gluttony is, however, letting food and drink practically rule your life, so basically making it an idol. In other words, gluttons are those who focus their life so much on food and drink, they completely ignore God and His Word, effectively making food and drink their God. And not only is gluttony bad for your spiritual health, but it's also bad for your physical health as well. We can now move gluttony to the side and move on to wrath. Wrath is excessive, uncontrolled, and vengeful anger. For example, let's say someone insults you and you get mad and tell them off, but you don't blow up and lose your temper or act ungodly, and that's it. That's anger that is controlled and not sinful. But now let's say someone insults the person with wrath, and they totally blow up and lose their temper completely, not thinking before they act and speak, causing them to say very hurtful things and maybe even hurting someone. That's uncontrolled, vengeful, and sinful anger, or in other words, wrath. And wrath, as its description literally states, includes revenge, all you vengeful people out there plotting, leave vengeance to God as the Bible tells us to. And now we can finally move on to sloth. Sloth is the reluctance to work or make an effort, both physically and spiritually. A slothful person might have work to do like taking out the trash, washing dishes, or finishing a report, but simply doesn't do it because they are lazy. A slothful person may also completely ignore reading the Bible, going to church, or even spreading the gospel because of that very same laziness. So you can see why sloth is bad for you both physically and spiritually. But now you know about all the 7 deadly sins, and I hope this video helped you understand them better and will help you to avoid them. Also, please feel free to leave any comments about what I should go over next. Anyways, see ya and have a blessed day.